Hello, I have this RTX 2080 Super since October 2019, and I've been noticing that it's running really hot while playing games and part-time mining on my gaming PC. So I thought about replacing the thermal pads and the thermal paste on this graphic card. I begin by inspecting the graphic card for all the kind of screws that it has and finding proper tools to undo them all. With the experience that I had replacing the thermal pads on the RTX 3080 Ti, now I have bought a proper toolkit to undo all kind of screws that Nvidia is likely to use. Though there are a lot of screws on the backplate, they all can be undone using a Phillips head screwdriver with the smallest number possible. As you can see, I have labeled all the 14 small head screws on the backplate, and 2 of them marked in yellow are the ones that are used to hold the PCIe brackets. Now another tool that I've been using is the magnetic pad that came along with that kit. It helps hold on to screws and not losing them. Now I will start undoing all the screws holding the backplate. I will start by using the smallest Phillips head screwdriver that I have. Now undoing the screws holding the PCIe bracket. Coming on to the PCIe bracket side, we only need a Phillips head screwdriver to undo all the screws. PCIe bracket of the GPU came off easily, but I had to take care of the position of the screws as they were all of different sizes. The backplate of the GPU can be taken off easily now. I just took off the cap of the NVLink connector and then proceeded to remove the backplate of the graphic card. I had already opened up this graphic card once to check the size of the thermal pads and the thickness so that I can order the proper size and thickness of thermal pads for this particular model of graphic card. If you see in this video that the backplate of this graphic card comes off really easily and yours is not, because this graphic card has been opened up already. This is how the thermal pads on the backplate are laid out. There are small pieces as well. You can replace these pieces by 0.5 mm or 0.75 mm thermal pads. There are many protruding parts that need to be isolated from the backplate. That is why these thermal pads are required. Before replacing the thermal pads on this GPU, we need to clean it up as there is mineral oil leakage from the thermal pads that were used earlier, and along with it there is dust deposits. We need to clean all these up so that there is no short circuiting possibility between the components. For the second layer of the screws that we need to remove, we see hexagonal nut-like screws which were holding the 14 small screws on the backplate. So we'll remove these by this hexagonal head screwdriver. It was 2.5 mm in dia. This is how the hexagonal head screw looks like. It has a threaded hole at the center which used to hold one of the 14 screws holding the backplate. Now I undid the 4 torque screws used to maintain pressure on the GPU die. I do appreciate the magnetic pad that holds all the screws in place so that their places are not lost. Now it's time to detach the PCB from the heatsink. Gently wiggling it on its place, it will come off, and taking care of the ribbons, all the wires that are connected. If you want to support the channel, you can buy these NFTs. The links are given in the description. Once the PCB is detached from the heatsink, We can take out the fan connectors from the PCB, completely separating the heatsink from the PCB. This is how it looks from the inside. Now I begin by measuring all the thermal pads for the replacement, measuring all the thermal pads with the proper thickness required. You might have noticed that I did not clean the PCB or the heatsink before removing the thermal pads, as there were a number of thermal pads spread all across the PCB and the heatsink which are of different sizes, and I did not want them to be jumbled up or to be left out. So I cleaned up the PCB and the heatsink after placing all the thermal pads in position. I use the Cooler Masters Master Gel Maker thermal paste to replace the thermal paste on the GPU. After replacing the thermal paste and the thermal pads, it is time to put back the GPU on the heatsink. Do not forget to plug in the fan connectors. I connected the fan connectors off camera, so it is not visible here. It is time to put back the screws that were out, and putting back the screws, you have to be careful that you do that one by one diagonally for the first time. Time to replace the thermal pads on the backplate. Now the thermal pads on the backplate were 0.5 mm thick. I replaced them with 0.75 mm as the thermal pads that I was using were quite squishy and could be pressed down to position. Time to put the backplate onto the PCB. Remember to do the first few screws diagonally first and then proceed with the others. It's quite simple to put the GPU back now. Remember to screw in the PCI bracket and all the screws that were in place. We'll begin by testing and I play PUBG at 90 FPS. So here it is. At the starting of the game, we can see the GPU is at 57 degrees Celsius. And as I played along, I realized that the amount of GPU utilized was the determining factor of how much the temperature was being shown on the core. I play at 1440p, 90 FPS locked, and some of the settings being dialed down as can be seen in the graphics settings. CPU is still running at 60 volts at 90 FPS. I think this will be part of the game progresses. As you can see, as the game progresses, the temperature did not rise above 72 degrees Celsius. I have been playing this game for about 17 to 20 minutes now, and I can say that even at the end of the game, the temperature never went above 72 degrees Celsius, which is a huge departure from where I was. The temperature even ran up to 85 degrees Celsius on the GPU core, which was huge and was really annoying as the fan ramped up to 100%. Now a thought might creep up to you that why am I not playing this game above 90 FPS though my GPU is capable of doing that? Because I am not a really competitive gamer and I do not find the difference between playing above 90 FPS and I really play it for fun with my friends. Plus I do not want to stress my GPU too much and do not want to consume too much power for unnecessary purpose. That is for this test. Let's proceed to mining tests now. Mining tests, I use T-Rex miner on ETHASH algorithm and the miner has been running for 34 minutes now. The temperature on core and memory are 61 degrees and 71 degrees respectively. The temperature on memory has decreased up to 20 degrees Celsius and on the core has decreased up to 15 degrees Celsius as I recorded earlier. That is it for this video. See you in the next one. Bye bye. Take care.